Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Lucha Rewatch. This is episode, I want to say 9 of Lucha Rewatch. Yeah, episode 9 of Lucha Rewatch. We just got done watching episodes 33 through 36 of Lucha Underground Season 1. Still riding on a high because Lucha Underground Season 2 is a thing. It is official and it is happening next year, most likely, from what we're assuming at least, in January. And I mean, if you still want to use hashtag Netflix needs Lucha, no one's going to stop you. But it seems like they aren't necessarily in need of it anymore. So, John, let's. What do you think about these 4 episodes? Would you say that they kind of continued the theme of a 4 episode series with a relatively comprehensive beginning to end storyline?
Certainly. I feel like maybe not so much as prior installments of, going by the 4 episode system, because really it had a new direction altogether, and that's laying the groundwork for Ultima Lucha. And that was kind of the point I wanted to make. I mean, this is the second to last episode of our series because the next batch will be covering Ultima Lucha. So, it really, you get that big feeling, that something's in the air. A lot of great build in these 4 episodes to the Ultima Lucha card, some great moments. And yeah, it just really goes to show why Lucha Underground is one of the best programs going today in the wrestling world, especially, in North America. So great stuff.
Absolutely. I don't know if I would necessarily say that we had a comprehensive beginning, middle, and end in these 4 episodes, but we did have some definite common themes that we saw in all 4 episodes. Namely, this whole thing between Sexy Star and Superfly and Vampiro and Pentagon.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I
That whole
completely agree.
thing, the whole thing almost it didn't necessarily start in episode 33, but it was definitely prominent throughout all 4 of these episodes, and that's why I said it. These 4 episodes didn't necessarily have a comprehensive beginning, but there was definitely a common theme there. So another theme I would say is just the mental breakdown, I guess you could say, of Marty the Moth Martinez,
Yes. Yeah, you could
because
really tell. Yeah.
he started this whole thing just in a random kind of a 4-way match for an Aztec medallion, and by the end he was freaking out, talking about how he needs to get the moth medallion to represent his ancient ancestors and his tribe.
Yeah, so very interesting progression for Marty the Moth as well, because again, like you said, it starts out pretty harmless, looking like any other competitor, but then he makes it his own personal mission to acquire one of these medallions. So yeah, a lot of interesting stories told here in these 4 episodes.
Absolutely. So, John, if you're cool with it, I'm cool with it. Let's get right into the first episode in this series, episode 33. We start things off just right off the bat, right into a match, Sexy Star versus Superfly. But before the match itself actually gets to begin, we get a Vampiro sit-down interview with Superfly, which is somewhat tense, just because Superfly kind of feels some anger towards Vampiro for preventing Pentagon from showing Sexy Star what Superfly had to go through.
Yeah, and very interesting here because Superfly he blames Sexy Star. He doesn't blame Pentagon for breaking his arm. He blames Sexy Star for taking his mask and pretty much says, when I get in the ring with her again, I'm not gonna make the mistake I did last time. Last time I took it easy on her because she's a woman, and I'm not gonna do that again. And I'm gonna beat her up and I'm gonna let her know how it feels. So Superfly very vindictive, very malicious towards Sexy Star in this interview. Feels humiliated, feels denigrated, having his mask taken away, and now he's just looking to make Sexy Star feel the same way.
Yeah, and as I was saying before the actual interview, we got to see that this was actually the match that was going to happen now, Sexy Star versus Superfly. So, John, Superfly said that he was going to beat her up. How did he fare?
I'd say pretty well considering he got the win in this thing here. Uh,
Exactly.
Yeah, great back and forth. I remember when we first watched this, I think you and I were a little bit surprised that Superfly got the win. Maybe not completely because I guess they wanted to reestablish Superfly for a little bit, given that this is his reentry and he went Rudo. But, Sexy Star prior to, or Superfly, I should say, prior to this, did not get a single win. Like, he was looking at a goose egg.
Yeah.
And, yeah, after back and forth between him and Sexy Star, which is pretty decent, especially for an opening contest, he beats her with a double power bombs her once, picks her back up, and then does a sit out variation, with the pin, and that's how he gets the win. So solid matchup, and yeah, it establishes Rudo Superfly as a force to be reckoned with, at least in Sexy Star's world. So good stuff.
Yeah, and I like this too because after this, it seems like Sexy Star doesn't lose a single match.
Yeah,
So it was good for them to just give Superfly this little bit of a rub to kind of set him up in a good position before really pushing Sexy Star big.
definitely. Definitely. And yeah, I think in the context of this feud, it was good to, have the heel go over in this one because, now he's already betrayed Sexy Star cost her that submission match against Pentagon. Now he's beaten her one-on-one, so she has to overcome something. It's very basic storytelling, something that Lucha Underground thrives at, and that they're very committed to. And yeah, I just think it was very smart all around.
Absolutely. So then after the match, we get a video package for Drago showing him using nunchakus, or as some people call them, nunchucks, which always annoyed me. But yeah, nunchakus.
Yeah, really cool video package. Again, I love Lucha Underground style, how they spotlight certain luchadors. And yeah, it just shows that yeah, Drago's fierce. He'll beat you down, man, and he
I
won't
like
think
this though
twice.
because I didn't really catch it before, but this was 100% foreshadowing.
Yes, yes, Ashton, yes. And for those that don't know what we're talking about, that really kind of reveals itself at Ultima Lucha
One,
Part One. And yeah, I love
which
it.
we'll be talking about next week.
Exactly. So yeah, Ashton, you're completely right because here, and I didn't mind it anyway when I just first thought that way. At first, I thought, okay, this is just a random spotlight for Drago.
Yeah,
Like, hey, this is one of the luchadors we have, which again I think is cool. Actually, I would like to actually see them doing that more often. But to know that it actually carried with it like an underlying message, or again, to use your term, foreshadowing, was just spectacular. So once again, Lucha Underground, way to exceed expectation.
yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, that's not the only video package, vignette, whatever you want to call it, that kind of had a payoff too, because Brian Cage, or just Cage, I guess, in Lucha Underground, his video package involved someone breaking a bottle over his head and him no selling it, and that exact same thing happened in his match with Mac at Ultima Lucha Part One.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Look at all these little findings here with the video packages. It's crazy, man.
I love it. It's awesome. All right, so then we get Melissa Santos in the ring saying that we're about to have a five-way Aztec medallion match, but Pentagon comes out and kind of chases her off, and then cuts a promo and gets up in Vampiro's face, and they kind of have just like a stare down. Vampiro undoes his dress shirt and just looks like they're about to go at it, and then Pentagon just kind of walks away.
Yeah, Pentagon continues to antagonize Vampiro, wants to bring the dark side out of him, wants to bring the violence out of him. Vampiro, of course, we knew the story from the first time watching, struggles with that duality. The commentator and family man struggling with the dark side of his past with the Vampiro character. And yeah, it was just great stuff because Pentagon's just desperate to bring that out.
Absolutely. All right, so then we do get, it's not a five-way because Pentagon's not in it anymore, but a four-way Aztec Medallion match. It's Aerostar, Marty the Moth Martinez, Cage, and the Mac.
Yeah, this match was crazy. I loved it. I mean, really, it's hard to talk about multi-person matches because there's always so much going on at once. But I think what I really appreciated was that they were able to incorporate story in
Yeah.
this match because A, you have, of course, Marty the Moth just, Aztec tribe wanting to do right by his ancestors that he claims to have. And more so, the whole thing with Cage and the Mac because Mac at one point just makes sure, well, if I can't win, I'm going to make sure that Cage can't win either. And he takes out Cage with a
Yep.
splash on the outside.
I
I
even have
love
in my
that, dude.
notes here Mac and Cage cancel each other out. Or I guess I should have just had Mac cancels Cage out.
Exactly. Because they were constantly going at it in this match, and then it's kind of punctuated with that, which allows Aerostar the opportunity to hit his springboard splash onto Marty the Moth for the 3 count.
Yeah.
So Aerostar gets the win, but I like how you're still able to incorporate and further a story within the concept of a multi-man match. I mean, to me, It may not seem like it takes a lot of effort, but the fact that it's put in there means so much,
Yeah.
because you could have just had these four guys kill each other, act like everything was forgotten, but no, you had Mac purposely, single out Cage and vice versa, and it just makes you more interested, like, okay, how are these guys going to settle their beef? So, great Fatal 4-Way.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun and just another amazing match to revel in the max athleticism for someone his size.
Absolutely, dude, completely agree. He
Yeah, I
is a
mean, like you said, he
beast.
did a freaking splash to Cage on the outside of the ring.
Yeah, I love the Mac. He's great.
He's really cool. All right, so then we get a backstage vignette, team sitcom training. This was the one where Ivelisse and Son of Havoc were boxing, and Son of Havoc kept on being like, "You gotta cover up, you gotta cover up." And then she's just like, "If you ever hit me again, I'm gonna destroy you." And then this is when Katrina shows up. She just kind of warns them that death is coming for them. She summons the disciples of death, who I guess kind of we have to assume that they just kind of knock Team Sitcom out. And then Mill shows up to escort Katrina out of the locker room and out to the ring.
Yes. And I enjoyed this segment. Not really much to say here. Again, it shows the team sitcom they have to get on the same page because the Disciples of Death. I mean, you want to talk about cohesion and unity. I mean, they really exemplify it because they're under the influence of Katrina, who has a greater motive here. So I love it. I love that they get the upper hand, and I love that it really gives team sitcom something like, hey, we got to fortify our front, we got to fight back, and it's good stuff. I love it.
Absolutely. So then, as I said, Mill was escorting her out of the locker room into the ring because our next match is Mil Muertes versus Drago.
You know what I love about this match, Ashton, and I was kind of telling it to you in conversation when we watched it together.
The fact that
Uh,
Hernandez attacked Drago beforehand and kind of gave you that little sense of doubt in the back of your mind, like maybe Drago could have won if it wasn't for that.
yeah, and to add on to that, I mean, you're absolutely right because I was thinking that. So yeah, you have the Hernandez attack, lays out Drago, makes you think, well, maybe he could have won otherwise. But the attack doesn't diminish Mil Muertes. And I love that they walk that line so well because you have Hernandez do the attack, but it doesn't stop Mil Muertes from being the monster that he is and just running roughshod over Drago. It was absolutely glorious. I mean, he beat him down something fierce to the point where you almost wonder the beatdown almost becomes rendered like a moot point. It wouldn't have mattered regardless, but you still have that hope again. Maybe he could have won if he was at 100%. Maybe he could have had a plan. So I love that they walk that line of protecting Drago,
Yeah.
getting the heat on Hernandez, but not diminishing Mil Muertes in the process. That is freaking brilliant to me. So yeah, great match just for achieving all those things alone, my friend.
Yeah, I love that they do it too because they did that more than once and even more than once in this set of episodes. If you want to just talk about this match, you had the Hernandez beatdown. The Son of Havoc match, you had the Disciples attacking Angelico on the outside, and of course Katrina with Ivelisse. And then even if you want to talk about the Prince Puma match, you could say, well, what if Conan had been around?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
you're
wouldn't
absolutely right.
call any of those Mil Muertes victories tainted by any means, but I do feel like there were different factors that the baby faces would have had more of a chance in another situation.
Definitely. And here's another interesting note, and this is like the only final mental note I took on this match. I, it was interesting to me that Mil Muertes, who's supposed to really, for all intents and purposes, be Rudo and be like this unstoppable force, be one of the top Rudos in Lucha Underground, if not the top Rudo, especially when you consider how Ultima Lucha was punctuated. Uh, and yet he listened to the crowd because there was one point where the crowd was saying, "We want tables," and Mill was looking around. And right after that, he tosses Drago out of the ring and he power bombs him on the announce table. I just thought that a very interesting thing that a guy that's supposed to be this monstrosity that we all fear that we're supposed to be going against, like he's like, okay, you want tables, I'll give you tables. And that's just always been the unique thing to me about the Lucha Underground crowd. It's not necessarily that they just cheer baby faces or boo heels. And I mean, they certainly do that. But I think what binds them all together is this affinity that they have for violence. And that's a call that anybody of any alignment can answer. So, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We even brought that up before because there was one week where I don't know the exact situation in Lucha Underground. It was probably something involving either Mill or Pentagon. But the idea that the crowd cheers for whoever is on offense, regardless of alignment, and that annoyed me with NXT because I think it was Samoa Joe versus Finn Balor or something like that. Oh no, it was Rhino. It was Rhino versus Finn Balor, and the crowd was chanting for Rhino when he was getting ready to hit a gore, and that annoyed me because WWE style booking. You're supposed to cheer for the face, and even though that might not necessarily always happen, most of the time, if people aren't cheering for the face, it's because they're cheering for the more exciting in-ring worker. And even if you want to look at it that way, Rhino doesn't make sense for someone that you would cheer for over Finn Balor.
Right.
Uh, but in Lucha Underground, the lines between face and heel definitely exist, even though with some characters they're a little more blurred than others. But at the end of the day, the common theme, the underlying and even overlying to some degree theme, is the crowd cheers for the violence, not necessarily the people.
Exactly. Because I'm pretty sure that if it was Drago on offense and he was whooping Mil Muertes like Muertes was whooping him,
Yeah.
people would still be calling for tables and Drago would oblige. So really,
No,
again, that's what it comes down to is the
it's
violence.
just
And
the culture.
yeah, but
Lucha Underground. That's what we brought this up in our video talking about the WWE's inability to create new stars. The WWE has tried really, really hard to make their brand the appeal that people want to buy tickets for rather than any individual star. And I mean, I guess some people might say that they have because it doesn't really matter who's on the card. If it's a WWE show, people are going to show up just to say that they went to a WWE show. But to me, I feel like everybody has a certain set of performers that they consider their favorite. And if there is like a commercial on television saying, "Hey, this WWE show is coming to a town near you. Buy tickets. You're going to see all these people." The people there that are being listed are the attraction. Those are what people are coming to see. But and now, granted, I would hate it if this would happen, but you could tell me that Lucha Underground is getting a brand new roster for season 2 with nobody returning, and I would be annoyed, but I would still want to tune in based exclusively on how well the writing is done for the show.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'd have the same reservations as you, and I'd probably be, greatly disappointed because I was even getting ready, to answer your point to say, of course you need, actual stars. That's what kind of confounds me about WWE. I mean, I agree with you on all points, but it's funny because I mean, you might as well just have people tour an empty arena. If WWE the brand is the thing, well, you could just be like, oh, I got to be at a WWE, event or location or whatever. When to me, like Lucha Underground has done such a great job, and its first season alone in establishing stars. I mean, for me personally, the three biggest stars, or I should say four, for me established in season one, obviously Prince Puma, Mil Muertes, Phoenix, and I'd put Pentagon up there because
Oh
this
my god,
season
yeah.
I think treated him really well. And
I
I
would
love that.
honestly, personally, and now granted, he's already kind of a star in Mexico and in AAA under a different name, but I would put King Cuerno on that list too.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yeah, definitely. No arguments here, man. And, I love that about Lucha Underground because they realize, hey, our brand is only as good as the people that are, supporting it on their backs and, that being the roster. So let's make as many stars as possible. And you and I just listed, and I'm sure you could even come up with a few more, but just in
Sexy Star is
conversation.
another one.
Sexy Star, that's six people we've listed off in
I mean,
one season.
she's known in Mexico, but I wouldn't consider her to be like a top star by any means. And from what I understand, she's still Rudo in Mexico.
Yeah, which is still crazy to me to think about.
Yeah,
But
she and
you
Pentagon were a tag team. I don't know if they still are.
wow. But like I mean that's what I'm talking about. In conversation alone, we listed off six people. And again, I'm sure there are more to be fair, but like six
Cage,
people that were like Cage is another
Son
one.
of
Yeah.
Havoc,
Son of Havoc, definitely. Oh my god, absolutely.
Drago.
Drago, yeah. I mean, so stars pretty
People
much
freaking love Drago. Like you
yes.
need to understand. Like I love, and I again, it's kind of the point that I just kind of plug whatever I enjoy at this point. So I freaking love the Podswoggle podcast, and they did an episode where they were doing drafts for like their fantasy promotions that they were gonna have, and the way that they talk about Drago, you would have thought that he was the top guy in Lucha Underground.
Yeah, man.
Like,
Like
and I think it's just because of how damn cool he looks. Like, it's just the mask, man. He's got an amazing look.
he's got a great look, but he's got the in-ring ability, I think, just enough to really back it up.
And
And
that's
that's
the
what makes
thing
me, yeah.
too. His in-ring ability is good, but there's nothing special about him in ring.
No, certainly not. But again, like that's why I use the term good enough because I think
Yeah.
he needed to show some competence to really back up the look, and he does, which I think makes him really the way I would describe Drago is he's so well rounded because he's not really dominant in one particular area. He
Well,
seems to
yeah,
be
he
about
is.
leveled up, except obviously the appearance,
Yeah,
which is
that's
just
what I
badass.
think that sometimes that's what matters more than anything, though. And it's not even necessarily like, oh, he looks like a male model. No, he wears a freaking mask, but the mask just looks so damn cool.
Exactly. Unfortunately, that didn't save him here though, because after getting power bombed, he got brought back in the ring. Maybe there was a little bit more offense. I know he got speared, actually through chairs. I don't know if he got speared again in ring, but what I do
Yeah, he
know
did.
is, yeah, I figured he did, because Mil Muertes doesn't stop until you're dead. And then
Yeah, and I even
Drago,
have in my notes that this is just the match where Mill just did not let up. He was so relentless in this match. I loved it.
I loved it too, and I really loved the end too because it just seems so perfect. Drago tries going for a punch. Mill catches the fist. He twists it. It's almost like Drago's last stand, and
Yeah.
then he eats the flatliner. And I don't know, just the imagery and just how everything was portrayed. It's like I took this last stand against death, and death came for me in the end. And Mil Muertes gets the win. He takes Drago's main event spot at Ultima Lucha, and just damn, I love how they wrote Mil Muertes for the first season. So freaking good.
I love how they wrote Drago for the first season too, because he got banned from the temple. He came back by winning a number one contendership shot, and then immediately lost said number one contendership without losing his spot in the temple. So they effectively brought him back through storyline with two matches with no other net gain other than just him coming back to the temple.
They really just brought him back to square one,
Yeah.
and it's just crazy to me how that works. But
And immediately introduced him into a new feud too, because again, we can't forget to start this match, Hernandez beat the crap out of him.
yeah, he did. With that leather strap, which I only mention that because pay attention to everything. But it's crazy to me how that works. But they pull it off because the writing is competent and the performers are so into their characters and so good in their portrayals that you get invested and you just go along for the ride. I loved Mil Muertes' path of destruction to close out this season, and I was happy for Drago that he got to compete in the Temple because I know you and I were both fans of his. I didn't want to see him go, so it really all worked out for everybody. I mean, except for Drago on this night, of course, because he got his ass beat. But it
You know what my
happens.
favorite moment was in this match though?
What's that?
Drago is going for the Dragon's Lair, Dragon Tail, whatever you want to call it, the pinning combination that he does. And he just gets Mill turned over, and Mill just clubs the shit out of his back.
Yes, that was great.
Oh my god, that's like, oh, you're gonna do all these fancy tricks? Yeah, let me beat the shit out of you and see how you respond to that.
And I love it too because I mean that sequence that you just described perfectly illustrates the dichotomy in this match. Like Drago's just like, okay, I'm gonna use my acrobatics, I'm gonna use my high aerial maneuverings, and Mil Muertes is just like, I'm gonna run through you until you die, and
Yeah.
that's just like we're gonna see which one wins out, and we're gonna look at it, folks. A brick wall actually wins. Who would have thunk? But yeah, great stuff, man.
Yeah. All right. So then we get to episode 34. We've only been through one episode and we've been recording for like 25 minutes. Episode 34, we start things off with Chavo Guerrero asking Cueto if he was ready to fulfill the final part of Chavo's request. Cueto kind of acts dumb at first, but then he does agree. Tonight, we will have Chavo versus Prince Puma for the Lucha Underground title. If Conan gets involved, Chavo automatically wins the championship.
Yeah, great segment here, really stacking the deck against Puma. Chavo seems like he's unstoppable because he has the remnants of the crew running with him, and he's got Dario Cueto's support, so he's got that political backing. So, yeah, it really builds Chavo up as a legitimate threat to Puma, given everything he's got going for him, and Puma really having something to overcome. Very straightforward and very effective.
Can I just say, I love that you specified that it's not even just like the whole crew anymore. It's just the remnants. It's just what's left of the crew.
Yeah, it's what Matanza decided not to eat, for
Yeah,
today anyway.
exactly. I love that. So then we got our first match of the night. Davari of the Delavar variety versus Tejano.
Yeah, not a bad match by any means. A good back and forth, but
This was the
ultimately,
first actual match that we got between these guys, so there's that.
yeah, exactly. Didn't get thrown out. They were actually able to do their business, and Tejano does get the win after the sit-out power bomb. Not really much to say about this match. Again, I enjoyed it, but I could never really sink my teeth into this feud because, again, like I've said in prior episodes of Lucha Underground Rewatch, I enjoy Tejano so much more as a heel. I really didn't care for his babyface run at all. I tried, and certainly Lucha Underground tried. It's not on them. It's just some things work, some things don't, and I don't think that a Tejano babyface works for me. So yeah, just glad to see this match got behind them.
Yeah, this is I mean, I feel like this was almost like a payoff in itself because of how many matches we've had. I think we've had at least two that just led to nothing because of disqualifications and interferences and stuff like that between these guys.
Now Ashton, real quick, wasn't there a miscue between Davari and Big Rick here?
Yeah,
Because okay, so that planted the seeds for that too. So
yeah.
at least that accomplished that as well. So and I love that because even if a Lucha Underground match doesn't really connect with me, or I could even say actually if a Lucha Underground match hasn't connected with you, it's never completely wasted because they always achieve something, and I really appreciate that about them. So even if I didn't really feel connected to this match, at least they laid the groundwork for okay, now there's tension going on between Davari and Big Rick. So good stuff there.
Absolutely. So then we get a backstage segment, a very, very similar to last week, where Katrina kind of had the Disciples of Death go after Team Sitcom. She steps up to Prince Puma to inform him that Mil Muertes will destroy anything that stands between him and his title. Mil shows up and they walk out.
Yeah. And that's just it. And Conan's just like mind games. It's all mind games. And Puma's just like, uh-huh. And so great stuff there between those two. And I love it, man. Just building that hype.
Absolutely. So then we can move on. Conan backstage giving kind of almost like a pep talk to an unknown figure. Says that Chavo has a debt to pay and he has something up his sleeve. He thinks that Chavo has something up his sleeve specifically. And he's basically just asking whoever it is that he's talking to for help.
Yeah. And
Asking
you
if
and I,
he'll
yeah.
have Puma's back tonight in the match against Chavo.
And you and I were really speculating, like, who could this be? Who is symbolizing Mexico here? We had our theories. And the reveal, I
They
won't
were
say was
all wrong.
they were all wrong, yeah, and the reveal was interesting to say the least. So, yeah, this segment was nice. Definitely built up intrigue for the main event.
Absolutely.
Uh,
So
yeah,
then we get Hernandez versus Drago, and this was a crazy match. Lots of time outside the ring. It ended up. It's funny because there was so much going on outside the ring, and the ref really didn't want to do anything about it because the commentators even told us that Cueto has informed the referees to let a lot more stuff slide leading up to Ultima Lucha. He wants violence and that kind of stuff. This still ended up being a disqualification because Hernandez stole a fan's belt and used it to whip Drago.
that was amazing. That fan looked absolutely petrified, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like you say, just beats the crap out of Drago with the belt, even chokes him with it. And then Hernandez, he pretty much says, like, I beat his ass, and if any of you have a problem with it, I'll beat your ass too. And it's like, oh man, Hernandez calling out everybody. So it's pretty much like Hernandez against the world at this point. Definitely very cocky, very arrogant. I'm telling you, man, I say it every time we talk about a Hernandez match. It's really a shame that things ended with him, outside of the whole kayfabe realm, with the contracts and everything the way they did, and he was only for one season. Because I don't think I've ever loved Hernandez more than I've loved him when he came in for the first season. Because he is just so good as a Rudo, just with the facial expressions and the natural swagger and everything like that. Man, he was always on point, dude. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah, this was great. I got to admit, I'm gonna miss Hernandez in season 2.
Me too, man. Oh, without question, dude. So good here.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right, so then up next we had Katrina in the back again, confronting Chavo this time, just kind of reminding him that Mill will destroy whoever holds the title at Ultima Lucha, whether it's him or Puma. And he just kind of takes it in stride and walks away, and then Mill kind of freaks out a little bit, gets like the big-eyed, open-eyed look.
Yeah, and he lets out a scream. And, like it's interesting to me, and I love this because we know in a prior, like the few episodes back when Chavo tried to take a shot at Mil Muertes, and Muertes like throttled him by the throat, and he said, you're gonna pay your debt for, costing me the soul of Blue Demon. And then, he just went down like that. He wanted to get out of the temple, but now he's willing to face Mil Muertes head on because he has the backing that he does. So I like this transformation in Chavo where, I mean, yeah, obviously he's still a heel, but he went from being a chicken shit to somebody that feels like he could stand on his own 2 feet because he's standing on the shoulders of giants. So there you go. I like it.
Yeah, this was cool.
Yeah, I appreciated this, man. Good stuff.
So speaking of cool, up next, Marty the Moth faced Alberto El Patron, and really, I mean, just I don't want to say slaughter because that's Matanza, but this was not a funny match at all.
No, no, it wasn't. Patron was all business, beating up a man that all he wants to do is make his ancestors proud. Do you see how brutish Patron is, Ashton? It's completely unbecoming of a champion,
Look,
if you ask me.
John, I appreciate your attempt at humor here, but this is no laughing matter. A man is dead.
Yeah, yeah, he really brutalized Marty the Moth here. It seemed like in a matter of moments he had that cross arm breaker locked in. Marty taps out, and then Patron pretty much says, hey Johnny, I thought we were friends, but when you put me through that window, I learned the truth, and you woke me up. But not only did you wake me up, you woke up the crazy part of me, the sadistic part of me, and this wasn't only the worst mistake that you could have made, it was also your last because I'm gonna rip your face off. Somebody already beat you to it there, Alberto, but I digress.
Wait, what?
Well, when he talks about ripping faces off, I said it's already been done. Somebody already beat you to
Oh,
that. Um,
yeah, but I mean, in a roundabout way, he did kind of manage to succeed on that endeavor after the end of their match at Ultima Lucha.
yeah, yeah. Just keep in mind that last part after the match was over,
Right.
like some kind of I don't even know what term to use. It's unbecoming, it's disgusting, and he really should know better. But of course not because he's Alberto El Patron, and you already knew that. I wink. Yeah, yeah. Get over yourself.
Keep winking, scrub.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Ugh.
then after this, we got our main event of the evening, Chavo Guerrero versus Prince Puma for the Lucha Underground Championship. And the man that Conan was talking to earlier that ended up helping was
Tejano.
Tejano. Yeah, he comes out and I mean, did he really do that much? I mean, I know that he helped to kind of neutralize the crew, but I don't feel like he did that much.
No, he really didn't. They left the rest to Puma. I loved how annoyed Vampiro got in this match because since Conan couldn't interfere, he was just echoing Vampiro the entire time, and he got so
Yeah,
annoyed.
even at the very beginning, he comes over and he tells him about it, and Conan or Vampiro was just like, "See, look at this! You can't annoy that kid in the ring, so he's gonna come over here and bother me." I love it.
I love it too, man. It was great. But yeah, Puma does get the win after the 6:30. The nice use of again the remnants of the crew and Chavo, just the no DQ stipulation. Tejano comes out to even the odds to your point. So Puma does overcome, and we have our main event set in stone now. It will be Puma versus Mil Muertes at Ultima Lucha. So very again straightforward main event, and now we know what we're looking at for Ultima Lucha. So mission accomplished here. Nicely done.
Yeah, absolutely. So then at the end of the show, we see Chavo in his locker room, and Blue Demon shows up, and he kind of just mocks Chavo for losing. But of course, because Chavo is, like I said earlier, so emphatically a guerrero. Yeah, he manages to turn the situation around, gets inside Blue Demon's head, taunts him about Tejano being a better rep for Mexico, and this leads to Blue Demon freaking the hell out.
Yeah, pretty much slams Chavo's face against the locker, throttles him by the throat against the wall, and he says, "I am Mexico, Chavo. I am." Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Calm down there, buddy. Nobody's starting in your spot. Uh,
Soy Mexico!
oh man. So yeah, good stuff. Interesting knowing that Chavo again, in his own way, kind of gets the last laugh here,
Yeah, of
and I kind of
course he
cast that,
does.
that shade of doubt, like where
Frickin'
is Blue Demon
Chavo,
going?
man. Frickin' Chavo.
Freaking Chavo, absolutely.
Chavito!
Yeah. So with that said, that wraps up the second episode. So I guess we can move on.
Well then, up next we have episode 35, and we begin with Pentagon Jr. talking to his master, telling him that Ian Hodgkinson would be his next sacrifice.
Yeah, and pretty much saying, that I want to destroy him at Ultima Lucha, and the master agrees, saying like, oh, that'll hurt his pride the most. You do it on the biggest stage, and you do something like that'll ruin him. And so they're in agreement, like he's gotta have Ian Hodgkinson, confront him head on. He's got to get this match, and yeah, I love the whole setting. I love that we don't get to see the master, but we finally get to hear their voice. So we do in fact know that they do exist. There's no more ambiguity about that. And yeah, I just love the whole vibe of this. This is a great way to start the episode.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting too because if you just pay attention to some of the subtle little, not even mannerisms, just some of the subtle kind of lines and just the language that they use in here, you could actually kind of convince yourself that it is Vampiro talking to Pentagon and trying to get Pentagon to beat Ian Hodgkinson and sacrifice Ian Hodgkinson to Vampiro so that he could take on his, I guess you could say, final form.
There you go, man. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love
So,
it.
yeah. So then we get our first match of the night: Mac versus Cage. Really fun match, and Mac basically wins with a really deep roll up.
Yeah, gets all of his body weight on there and gets Cage down. And you know what I really appreciated about this match more so than I did the first viewing? Once again, the commentary, particularly Vampiro. Vampiro made Cage seem like a really big deal. In fact, he had a line in here that I really appreciated. He talked about how Cage was only pinned one time, and that was only thanks to Conan's cane, so a foreign object being used. So he made it seem like you're not gonna pin Cage, and if you are, like it's not going to be an easy time. It is going to be a struggle, which I think made the Max victory just all the more important, and all the bigger because, hey, I pulled out what in Vampiro's eyes would be an upset. So I really appreciated that here.
Yeah, that's brilliant, man. I didn't even think about that as it was happening, but you're completely right.
Yeah, I really like that they protected Cage like that they really raised his stock like that and see people, that is the value of good commentary. I'm telling you, like, I love this show so
See,
much because I think it gives everybody
John,
what they want.
I know that I completely appreciate what you're trying to do here, but at the end of the day, you're preaching to the choir because I'm pretty sure 99.99999, I could just say repeating at this point, but that would
Yeah.
just be 100% of our listeners know that good commentary is a good thing.
Yeah, I know, man. It's just a shame that it's not more well known by people who actually have influence,
In
in
other
the
words, yeah, like WWE staff.
WWE
It's
and yeah,
really what it
WWE
comes
staff
down
and
to.
that, yeah, really, because none of that is done here. I love how even with a match that doesn't have world title implications or this, that, or the other, it's just a match, a simple feud of physicality. Like they still take the time to make Cage seem like a big deal because that goes such a long way for both the babyface and the heel. And yeah, as far as the in-ring work goes, of course it's spot on. I mean, these guys are two incredible talents. I love the stuff they did here. That suplex that the Mac did, like that T-bone suplex to Cage in the turnbuckles, looked brutal. I loved it. So great spots there, and this is just a really fun match.
Yeah, I mean, this is just to kind of put into perspective how bad WWE's commentary is. If I had to make lists of every wrestling promotion that I am at least aware of and have seen shows of, just for different elements of wrestling, like, okay, best roster, best in-ring work, best promos, best storylines, etc., etc. I think TNA would be at the bottom of every single list,
Right.
but I think that for commentary, I would even prefer to listen to Matthews and freaking Pope than JBL Cole and anyone.
Yeah, that's bad. Because you and I have sat in on TNA episodes where Josh Matthews was working them, and oh my god, it's awful. But yeah, I love Lucha Underground commentary. I love everything about this show, and it's really exemplified with this matchup. And again, I love the base of the feud. Nothing grand or, overly convoluted. It's just one guy enacting an act of violence on another guy, and now that guy's looking for payback, and he got a little bit of comeuppance tonight. I love it, dude.
Yeah. So up next, we see Katrina again backstage messing with Team Sitcom. Son of Havoc's in his locker room, and she kind of steps up to him and tells him that death is coming for him. Not just death, though, 1,000 of them. And then Ivelisse shows up, and being Ivelisse says, "Back off, bitch." And then Katrina disappears as Ivelisse is going to grab her and probably choke her, if I had to guess. But because Katrina disappeared, Ivelisse ends up falling on Son of Havoc and landing on top of him. And then Angelico shows up and he's just like, "Oh crap, please tell me you guys aren't getting back together." And they're just both like, "Shut up!"
Yeah, the segment is the right amount of intensity, with
This
Katrina's
is
presence.
exactly why we call them Team Sitcom, folks.
Exactly. Because, Katrina's presence, kind of heightens the intensity to the segment.
If this
But
isn't a literal ripoff of a scene from Three's Company, I don't know what is.
yeah, there you go. And then the intensity of, Katrina's presence becomes deflated, and I say that in a good way, and instead replaced with that comedic relief again with the whole circumstances of Ivelisse falling on Son of Havoc and all that stuff. So a good segment that I think walks the line well between seriousness and comedy. Well done.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we get our second match of the night. Not second match of the night yet, because up next we got a Vampiro sit-down interview with Pentagon Jr. And boy, if I had to use one word to describe this, it's tense.
Yeah, definitely. Vampiro tries to get answers from Pentagon about his master. Pentagon.
And I love that immediately. He doesn't even wait. Really, just legitimately, come on, man, I need an answer. You got to tell me something. He doesn't even do that. He's not waiting. He doesn't expect anything to come of this, and he just immediately says, "All right, well, I knew you weren't going to answer that, which is why I had this other question prepared."
Right.
I love that, dude. When have you ever seen an interview where somebody opens up with the hardest hitting question, and then within 10 seconds, within 5 seconds, I feel like this was, they just say, "Okay, I knew you weren't going to answer that, so answer this instead."
Yeah, that's great. I love it. It's just absolutely fantastic.
It's
and
funny
just,
too because
yeah.
I was expecting okay, who is your master? And then there's just this long, intense 20-second stare down. And then after Pentagon doesn't answer for that amount of time, Vampiro's just like, "Are you going to talk to me, or why would you schedule this interview if you're not going to actually give me any answers?" And then Pentagon just keeps staring at him, and he's just like, "All right, fine, let's just move on to the next question," and just give up like that. But no, he just immediately, "Who is your master?" Wait for it. Wait for it. Okay, fine. I knew you were going to answer that, but
Yeah, it's almost like knowing what we know now. It's almost like Vampiro was almost testing Pentagon.
yeah,
Are you gonna answer? Or do you know to take it to
dude,
your grave? Things
you're
like that.
so right. I didn't even think about that, but you're so right.
Yeah, I feel like he was almost kind of testing him, being like, okay, let's see how devoted you are. How quick would you be to break? And when he sees that Pentagon isn't gonna break, and that he's really committed to this path of violence, we know, okay, yeah, he is the one. And I love it because he does switch over to the fact hey, you cause pain, you're violent, and it shows highlights of Pentagon's acts of cruelty. And he says it reminds me a lot of myself. And Pentagon answers, well, you and I think we are a lot alike. When you were Vampiro, you were very violent, but look at you now, you're a coward. And Vampiro immediately flares up, saying, hey, don't talk about me like that. You want to go? I'll beat your ass. My time is come and gone, but I will not be talked to that way. You want to go? I will beat your ass right now. So really getting uppity about it, very hostile with Pentagon's antagonisms.
Yep.
And Pentagon pretty much gets to the point. He says, I want to fight you at Ultima Lucha. Prove to me that you're not a coward. Prove to me that you could still be Vampiro. Fight me at Ultima Lucha. And Hiro's like, hey man, my time's come and gone. I ain't got no ego. All right, I put that aside. This is your time. My time's come and gone. I got a daughter, man. I'm 32-time world champion. You're gonna disrespect me like this? I've been all over the world. I've done unforgivable things, violent things, cost me my family. All I've got left is me and my daughter. That's me now. I'm a good person now. And Pentagon's just looking at him all the while like, bullshit, man. Bullshit.
Yep.
I love it, man. This was so well done.
Yeah. You could cut the tension with a knife, man. This was amazing.
Certainly, yeah. I gotta say with this rewatch, because everybody knows the first time viewing, all the 12-hour reviews, I was so hesitant about this feud. But really looking back and knowing that it went well, I can really just have fun with it and appreciate it. And it's a great feeling because these two work so well off each other.
Yeah, and I think what's really great too is that we know how good the match ended up being.
Yes, definitely.
I think that was a major concern too.
Certainly. I'm just thinking like, oh God, is this gonna be like one of those guys thinking, oh, I could still go, and then they just stink up the joint. But no, that I gotta tell you, man, like this was the match again. This is the program, more in general that really convinced me. Yeah, Lucha Underground can do anything. So I think the second season, I'm just gonna have just explicit confidence and trust in them, and I'm gonna be like, well, I may be a little wary of it, but I know you're gonna know what to do with it. So any company I could do that, big thumbs up to you guys.
Definitely. All right, so now let's talk about what we were getting ready to talk about. The Mil Muertes versus Son of Havoc match.
This was a fun match,
It
dude.
was. And
This
this was
was yeah.
another match where it seemed like Son of Havoc was, I mean, not only standing a chance, but almost winning until something extracurricular happened.
Yeah, if you're Son of Havoc, you gotta be thinking, man, like, why haven't I dropped this weight yet? Because yeah, he
Because they
really
were
was.
still champions at this point.
Exactly. Yeah, he was kind of stuck with them. You say championships, I would almost call him cement shoes. Son of Havoc. If he could really just go fully on his own, I think he'd really blossom in singles. And he probably thinks that too. He's like, I'm a trios champion, but you know what would really look good? That Lucha Underground championship, though. But yeah, man, you're absolutely right. He had flurries of offense in this match. It really made it seem like he stood a chance against, beating Mil Muertes. And what I love too, and it was really illustrated in this match, and they've done it in past matches, don't get me wrong. But I love how after every high offensive maneuver, Son of Havoc would go into the crowd and celebrate with the people. Like that's where he drew his energy from.
Yep.
Like that is the ultimate babyface right there, actually. Because how many times have you said because you just got done talking about your annoyances sometimes with WWE fans when they cheer the heel and not the babyface, especially when the babyface is certainly more exciting than the heel, so you really can't understand it. But you've always been like, when the babyface is at the low point, that's when the crowd cheers and rallies and they feed off of it. Son of Havoc just feeds off the fans perpetually. I feel like he's the ultimate babyface finally realized because he has this connection with the crowd. It's almost like him and the crowd versus Mil Muertes. So I
And
really like
Katrina
that.
and the Disciples of Death.
And Katrina and the Disciples of Death, yes. But I love that. And I hope that's a connection that's really expounded upon and fleshed out more in the second season because Son of Havoc, I think, is really just that. Started out as that lump of coal, but when you really apply the pressure and get him in these programs, he's really revealed to be one of Lucha Underground's best diamonds of the season, I think.
Definitely.
And,
Well
again,
said, too, John. Well said.
thank you, thank you. But yeah, to your point, interference again because the partners can't hold their own weight. On Elico seems like he's distracted by Katrina. Evalisa's just like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then she gets thrown by the throat and sinking to her knees because her life force is being drained. Because I'm telling you, people, she's a damn succubus. But fine, nobody listen to John. You try and attack it anyway. And then she gets hit in the skull with the stone. And then Havoc takes out all three members of the Disciples of Death with a really cool looking dive maneuver to the outside. Again celebrates the people before quickly rushing back in, ducks one clothesline from Mil Muertes, gets caught on the rebound, and he does this spin that just looks ridiculous. Like the impact, though. And then the flatliner, and then Mil Muertes gets the win.
Wow, John, you're laughing like you're reveling in Mill getting the win.
Look, I'm just saying, man, let this be a lesson to everybody. You go and try and be a hero, and then you get killed. You see what happens? That's what happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Son of Havoc lost.
Yeah, he did. Uh,
Oh man. So then after this match ended, we got a Tejano promo in the ring. Really kind of weird actually. He basically says, "I'm an asshole, but you're going to cheer for me anyway because I'm from this country."
that really is it. Like, you're gonna cheer for me because I'm a product of patriotism and screw everyone else. He literally says, like, with Sexy Star and all those people, like, I don't like them, but I don't turn on my Raza. It's like, oh, okay, that's really sending a conflicting message if I've ever heard one, but we'll roll with it. Um, then,
Especially because I'm not one to get racial up in here, but isn't Sexy Star white?
is she? I I feel like we're about to go down a rabbit hole that there's no coming back from. But
Yeah.
regardless,
I mean, I guess I wasn't really the one to get racial here when he starts throwing around words like la raza. I mean, you know what that means, right?
I always thought that meant, well, I guess familia means family, but I guess La Raza means what? My people?
Race.
Oh, race. Well, that makes sense.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
used in a sense of like, yeah, like my people, but
Right.
literal translation is race.
Right. Right. Um,
So he's basically saying, I will never turn my back on Mexican people.
yeah. Yeah, which, it's a nice sentiment and I think appropriate given the setting, but it's like, okay. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe it's just me misinterpreting the word, but that would be like John Cena saying, I would never turn my back on white people.
oh my god, in this day and age, please. Like, even I would be like, oh, come on now, John. Come on now, really? Um, but yeah, then the segment gets even more awkward because, again, like, this is one of the few, and I really cannot emphasize the word
No,
few
you know what? Now that
enough.
I think about it, it basically is just John Cena saying, I would never turn my back on Americans.
Yeah,
Because that's
screw
like,
you.
it's not like Mexican is a race. That would be Hispanic. So Mexican is just it's a country
Right,
nation. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's basically, this is literally John Cena versus Rusev, but in a Mexican context.
Yeah,
I would say the same thing about like what freaking Alberto El Patron's been doing in AAA, where with his match against Cage and then Johnny Mundo, they both. I mean, Cage comes out with a freaking Donald Trump for President 2016 shirt on. Johnny Mundo comes out to what was
born
that?
in the USA.
Born in the USA. Like, yeah, it's literally John Cena versus insert random foreign heel here, except for Mexico. And in this case, rather than Patron, it just happens to be Tejano.
Yeah. And for me, and again, returning to my original point, this segment gets even more awkward. And again, this is one of the few, and again, really emphasize few here, moments I didn't like in the first season because the crew starts attacking Tejano, and then Blue Demon Jr. comes in, and he seems like he's going to fend off the crew. The crew leave, and then, he seems like he's checking on Tejano, but then the crew grabs a chair, but then they slide it into the ring and then it clicks. I mean, obviously, if you just slide it in the ring like that, Blue Demon Jr. is going to go Rudo, and he does. He cracks Tejano over the skull, busts him open, and says, you are not Mexico, I am, but you will fight at Ultima Lucha. I don't need you fighting my battles for me, but you're going to fight me. And then it says Perro, so dog. And
Perro!
exactly. To me, like, again, I I think I forgave it on the first viewing, and I think we even talked about this in our review because we were so close to Ultima Lucha at this point. It's only a 39 episode season. It's not like a weekly episodic television program like Raw, where maybe you could have more time to build things up. So I get the need for some things to be abrupt. But I do wish we had a better foundation laid for this first, because it just seemed like it happened so fast. Like, even if you wanted to do it the same night, and instead maybe you wanted to do Blue Demon Jr. and Tejano versus the crew in a tag match, and then you have a moment in that tag match where, the turn goes down. That, I think, would have been easier to go down than, oh, they slid him a chair, and then you just easily connect the dots. I feel like just that moment alone kind of sucked any suspense out of it. Even if you knew it was going to go that way, you could have at least presented it a little better. So yeah, this is one thing that I really wasn't favorable towards in the first season, if I'm being honest. So
Yeah, I as we rewatch this, I think I can get behind Tejano's face turn, however much of a face turn it really was, given that he still admits to being an asshole. Uh,
yeah,
but the heel turn for Blue Demon just didn't work for me.
I'm glad I'm not alone in that, because yeah, I just felt a complete disconnect. Not saying that he can't be Rudo, because they even refer to him as the original Rudo.
Yeah.
But just it's all about the presentation, and I just feel like it was off here.
An
Um,
odd miss for the Lucha Underground crew.
Definitely. Yeah, I get it's such a rarity that I almost feel bad complaining about it, but we always got to be honest. And just the honesty of it is, I felt a disconnect here. But yeah, bloodies him and then just says, yeah, you're going to fight me. So we know Tejano versus Blue Demon Jr. at Ultima Lucha, which, again, I also find funny because so much for Blue Demon Jr. not making it to the Ultima Lucha card after he got beat down by Chavo. So he found a way on it after all, folks. So what came after this, brother?
So after this, we had Alberto El Patron, Sexy Star. This is a what did they call it? Atomicos match. Alberto El Patron, Sexy Star, Aerostar, and Drago versus Johnny Mundo, Hernandez, Jack Evans, and Superfly. So again, continuing with this theme, we've got Drago and Hernandez on opposite sides, Sexy Star and Superfly on opposite sides, and of course Patron and Mundo on opposite sides. So I guess Aerostar and Jack Evans are just kind of tossed in there for high spots, right?
Well, Aerostar and Jack Evans are in there because they both have medallions, and so I guess highlighting the Gift of the Gods match. That's the only tenable connection I could find with those two.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, fun match. Obviously, what I liked best were the interactions between Patron and Mundo, and they were kind of highlighted here because any chance that Patron would get, he would chase around Mundo. Mundo did a great job of being the heel, making sure that Patron wouldn't get a hold of him. It even got to a point where they both left the ringside area like they were nowhere near it. And I'm thinking, are they both gone? Because normally by WWE standards, when you see a spot like that, the finish is close at hand. But I actually liked it because both guys returned to their respective corners, and I'm like, oh, okay, that was just a nice little teaser. Fun stuff here, especially with the likes of Jack Evans and Aerostar, who are good for the high flying spots. Patron always good with the striking, and Mundo with just the heel ability. The finishing sequence really comes when Jack Evans is caught in the cross arm breaker by Patron, but the positioning allows Mundo to hit an end of the world. And then Sexy Star tries a crossbody while Mundo's distracted, but he's able to roll through the pressure, and after grabbing her tights, he gets the 3 count. So Johnny Mundo's team wins thanks to his fearless and courageous leadership. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I completely sign on to the fact that you're correct as far as the result goes. Maybe not so much the message that you tacked on there, but we'll work it out.
We always do, my friend. We always do.
I don't even know what to say at this point.
I don't either. Let's move on.
All right, so that was actually the main event, and it's worth noting though that when Stryker is kind of signing us out of the show, filling us in on what's going to go down next week and that kind of stuff, that was another Pentagon attack on Vampiro.
That's right. Yeah.
And this was the gasoline threat.
It's like, I could set you on fire now with you all prepared, but I'm going to give you 1 week to save your own life. And yeah, he says, if you don't face me at Ultima Lucha, if you don't come to your senses, your family and the entire world is going to see me just set you on fire and just destroy you. So this is a great attack. Really heightened the violence of the Pentagon character. Again, they really finished the Pentagon character strong this season, dude. Just so freaking good. And yeah, what a great way to punctuate this episode. And then yeah, that just leaves episode 36, right?
Yeah, episode 36, and we start things out with Pentagon in Dario Cueto's office, turning down an Aztec medallion. Because if he really wanted them, he would have already just gone in there, broken his arm, and taken all of them. So his only real goal at this point is just destroying and sacrificing Vampiro.
You know what? Like this segment, and again, it's funny the things that you extrapolate from a rewatch, which makes me so glad that we did this series. Because one thing that I really appreciate about the Dario Cueto character, as opposed to the Authority, and I was kind of ranting about this on Puitov. I don't know if you saw the thread, Ash. It was me doing one of my pro Seth Rollins posts, but then it kind of turned into a little mini discussion.
I gotta admit, Sean, I saw that you made another pro Seth Rollins post and got through the first paragraph, and then I was just like, okay, well, he does these, so I'm just gonna move on.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah. But nothing against you personally. Just I love Seth Rollins, but I'm not really interested in reading 12 paragraphs about how he's being screwed over every single week either.
Hey, it was only 11 and a half this time. But anyway,
Oh, that's not too bad, I guess.
but what I love here is that Dario Cueto, as opposed to the Authority, like he has legitimate power, obviously, and he has legitimate forces, at his beck and call. Again, obviously, but he's not above, not even necessarily receiving a comeuppance, like when Johnny Mundo punched him in the face and stuff, but just really being threatened. Like, I love how, like, so few people really give a crap about stepping on his toes, whereas in the Authority, like, they're untouchable. They can't receive a comeuppance. And that's kind of bothered me because I always thought that Vince McMahon, when he was an on screen character, was the opposite of that. Sure, he'd be a piece of shit, but you always knew he was going to get his in the end. And that's just what I love about Cueto, because Pentagon, who has to know all the goings on in the temple with a master like his, that, they've got to have their finger on the pulse, still tells him, knowing all that, you ain't shit. If I wanted these medallions, I could have broken your arm and taken all of them anyway. So I love that. I love that the medallions don't necessarily lose their importance, but that Pentagon has a completely different goal that's sovereign from the goings on of the temple. And yeah, I just really appreciated this segment for that because it just shows the diversity of like all these characters and their ambitions and their motivations. And yeah, just great stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Cueto asks when we're gonna see this master, and I think Pentagon pretty much says like he'll reveal himself when he's ready, and he's just focused again on getting Vampiro, Ian Hodgkinson, to just fight him at Ultima Lucha. So
Yep. And man, I'm glad it worked out because that match ended up being great.
absolutely, my friend. So what came after this, brother?
After this, we had our first match of the night: Bengala versus Delavar Davari for an Aztec medallion with Big Rick at ringside. And Bengala, I think this might have been the miscue between Davari and Rick.
Yeah, this is another big one because I think again Tejano and Davari had kind of started it, and then this only further exacerbated it because this one actually had a medallion at stake,
Yeah.
so cost him a high profile match. And yeah, Big Rick accidentally strikes Davari. That allows Bengala to capitalize, hit a roll through German suplex, and get the win. So Bengala is going to give to the gods. Fun matchup here, but really the finish is the only thing of any kind of significance because we have another piece of the Gift of the Gods match, and again the tension between Davari and Rick, it grows. So yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely. So, uh, yeah, this Davari gets kind of, I don't want to say screwed over because it's help that he hired that he wants to use to cheat with, but yeah, it kind of blows up in his face for the second time now.
Yeah, not really working out all that money you put into it, is it, Davari? So there you go.
So then we get Vampiro in the ring, and he starts cutting a promo, and Pentagon comes out for some trash talk. Basically, this is the big segment where Vampiro, where I guess Ian, I should say, says, I won't fight you, but the man that's going to kick your ass at Ultima Lucha is Vampiro.
Yeah,
And then he choke slams him, so that was awesome.
great segment. Got a great response from the crowd, which was like a
Yeah,
huge relief.
it really
Uh,
did.
because, and you and I have said this in the past about WWE products, if the crowd is into it, I think that's kind of the sugar that makes the medicine go down.
Yep,
And this wasn't even really medicine to begin with, because again, it turned out to be amazing, but it's always nice when you know that it's being received well, because I think it relaxes your own state of mind. Crowd very receptive to Vampiro. I loved how he stood amongst the people after the choke slam. This is a well done segment. They put their backs into really building this match for Ultima Lucha, and it succeeded. So my hat's off to everybody.
absolutely. So up next, we had our second match of the night: Killshot versus King Cuerno.
What can I say? Great match, great back and forth, almost like a chess game between these two. One point, Cuerno tried going for his suicide dive. Killshot got the kick to the head, but then Cuerno would go for it a second time, and he actually caught it. Another point that Killshot had the throw all the hunt scouted, but then Cuerno had an answer to that as well because the finish of this match would see the debut of a submission hold for Cuerno, and it was pretty much like that surfboard dragon sleeper that we've seen Daniel Bryan do. But the execution from Cuerno was just absolutely flawless. Again, I really said that on this rewatch. It's given me a chance to appreciate like the technical acumen and just the fluidity of holds and movement of King Cuerno. He's just so precise, so exact in there. It's a beauty to watch, and he gets the submission victory, and by doing so, gets a medallion. King Cuerno goes to Gift of the Gods.
Yep, and I feel like didn't Killshot also end up in the Gift of the Gods match?
No. No,
No.
I think that was his only opportunity because Gift
Huh.
of the Gods. Let's see. Yeah, I feel like we completed the picture with our, well, I don't want to say, I guess our main event match of the night, right? Because that was sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I mean, that was next. We might as well talk about it. Superfly versus Sexy Star for a medallion.
Dude, not much to talk about. Sexy Star makes
Sexy
quick
wins
work
with
of
La
Superfly later.
Mística.
Yeah, the La Mystica armbar. We see her bring it out here. And you know what? Going back on the rewatch, I failed to connect the dots before. I can appreciate that Sexy Star won this match by submission, seeing as how Superfly's turn came at the expense of costing Sexy a submission match. So I
Yeah.
find that to be poetic justice.
Well, and I
Um,
mean, not to mention, it's kind of a scummy move because Sexy Star was, just from Superfly's perspective, Sexy Star was the reason he got his arm broken, and now you're going to go and use an arm submission on him?
I love it though. Way to stick it to him, Sexy. I think those are our Rudo tendencies back in AAA.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
just working off Pentagon.
there you go, man. There you
Tag
go.
team partners for life.
I love it, man. So she gets the win, she gets the medallion, and of course, Marty the Moth Martinez, everybody's favorite resident creeper,
And
thinking,
Psychopath.
and psychopath, yes, that was definitively confirmed. Um, and he says, "Sexy, may I call you sexy?" And I'm like, ugh. He
Is
says,
this the
"Allow
exact
me."
reaction you had?
Uh, Inside, yes. Internally, yes. Externally, I was just kind of glued to the screen because it's Lucha Underground. It's amazing. But he's like, "May I see that medallion?" He kind of takes it from her. She's getting all annoyed, like, "What the hell is this?" And he's like, "Exactly as I thought. It's a moth." And it's like, "You owe me the opportunity to win this and bring it back to my tribe." And Sexy Star, of course, being the babyface, never backing down from a fight, especially one issued by a man who thinks that he could just belittle a woman. She's like, "Oh, hell yeah, we'll go. Bring it." And they go
Bitch.
at it. Yeah, bring it, bitch. And they go at it for a little bit. I mean, granted, Marty the Moth does a little bit better than Superfly, but he too falls to La Mystica. So Sexy Star pretty much wins 2 matches in one night. And this is why it will shock me if this woman never becomes Lucha Underground champion, because she really is unstoppable. Very rarely does she get stopped in her tracks. And but again, I can tolerate it more now that she actually has a legitimate finisher that isn't called roll up of some variation. So good
Yeah,
stuff here.
definitely.
Oh man.
All right. So, yeah, Sexy Star wins 2 matches in one night, but still not the main event because the main event is still revolving around the Lucha Underground Championship. We get our face off, Prince Puma and Mil Muertes. Dario Cueto really does try to moderate this thing, but there's nothing moderate about this whole situation. The Disciples of Death do attack. Conan tries to save Puma with his cane, but just gets destroyed and put into a casket, and then eats a flatliner to close the show.
This was amazing. One thing that hasn't changed from the original viewing to the rewatch, I reveled in seeing Conan get laid out. It was great. "Oh, I'm gonna come in and use my cane. Oh god, it got thrust in my kidney by Mil Muertes. Oh, woe is me." Yeah,
Hey
yeah.
man, it worked against Cage. What are you gonna say?
Well, I'll tell you what I say. How's that blood taste going, man? Because you just got it hit hard in your midsection. And then when he got put in the casket, just glorious. I really love Mil Muertes on this night. I'm like, thank you, Mil. You've done a service to us all. And then I love, too, like, the extra, like, sixth step that they take by making Puma watch. Like, oh, yeah, your mentor, your guiding light. Yeah, we're going to drag him off, and you can't do anything about it. And then he eats the flatliner. What amazing heels. Just great.
You're kind of sick, guy.
Hey, look, man, Rudo for life, all right? Oh, it was amazing.
I guess it's a good thing we never got into that podcast feud with the last Real Heels because you totally would have jumped ship on me.
I really would have. Rudo's rule.
Oh man.
Oh,
All
man.
right. So that was our main event. That was our main event of our main event show of this section. And guys, it's finally happening again. Next week, Lucha Rewatch for episode 37 and then both parts of Ultima Lucha. I can't. We've seen Ultima Lucha and we live reacted to it, but we've never actually reviewed the show, and that's going to be a first. That's going to be something that's going to happen for the first time ever next week.
I can't wait. Ultima Lucha was such an incredible show that to really be able to relive it, especially because I don't think you and I have like touched it outside of like this program. So for me, I've taken enough time away from it that I'll really be able to revel in it and get into it all over again. It's gonna be just amazing, guys.
I might not even take notes because I feel like I still remember Ultima Lucha play by play.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Definitely.
So it's amazing, and we're going to talk about it next week. That being said, though, everybody, let us know what you think about this set of episodes 33 through 36. If you've been watching along with us, which hopefully you have been, let us know just what your favorite part of this chunk of episodes was. I think that personally, my favorite part was the Mil Muertes versus Son of Havoc match, because it was really almost like a coming out party for Son of Havoc, because he was really taking it to Mil. He beat the crap out of him. He was getting the upper hand, and then those damn Disciples of Death just ruined the match for him. What about you, John?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd also have to say, given how giggly and everything I got about it, I really have to say that Conan beatdown was probably my favorite part of these, non-match segment. That was fantastic.
You're just such a heel.
Oh man. So yeah, yeah. Good
Oh
stuff.
man. All right. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know what your favorite segment or moment or whatever was from episodes 33 through 36 of Lucha Underground, the shows that we just talked about. If you enjoyed this episode of Lucha Rewatch, be sure to give us a like, a thumbs up down in the little thumbs up bar. And we want to hear your opinions. What did you enjoy about this chunk of episodes? What are you looking forward to next week, other than the obvious Ultima Lucha? What specifically? Be specific. I mean, anyone could say, "Oh, can't wait for you guys to talk about Ultima Lucha," but we really want to know what part of Ultima Lucha you want to hear our thoughts on. We will see you guys for NXT TakeOver Respect live reactions tonight. Or if you're only here for Lucha Underground, we'll see you for our final episode of Lucha Rewatch next week.